Hi, this is the Chapter 12 Quarantine Commentary. I'm Dustin Matthews. I'm one of the co-directors of this episode.
And I'm Connor Pickens. I'm the other co-director of this episode.
This is Kiersi Burkhart, and I co-wrote this episode.
This is Eddy, and I also co-wrote this episode.
And this is Kerry Shawcross, and I don't know if I'm ready for this, y'all. This is a big one.
Well, one of the things that I feel like we talked about this a little bit in the Chapter 9 commentary, but from the very beginning of our outline stages, we really wanted to have that kind of false sense of resolution coming, and then to just kind of like throw everyone's hopes against the wall. And this episode, I feel like it's like all the fallout of it, so it's definitely intense.
And everyone is, I mean, you can see right away, Robin's hot-headedness is just like, everyone's operating on totally incomplete information. They got a 10-second call from RWBY, and there's no way to ask questions or get clarifications. So everyone's just doing the first thing they think of doing.
Which, yeah, isn't always the best idea necessarily, but it is the first thing that came to them, which I think, plays into the franticness of this moment. Also, Dustin, shout out to you and the team for doing a fight scene in such a small location.
Yeah, that's what I was going to. Especially Clover, like his weapon, when it's fully extended, is so long, and that's basically
longer than the ship, probably.
It's really, really small. So there's a lot of really like wide lenses and stuff.
It turned out great, and it's a very high energy.
Shout out to this.
That's the best one.
Yeah. That's my biggest contribution to this whole season, was getting this to wear the pilot's hat.
Every time I imagine that pilot, I imagine like the gif of Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad drinking the water while everyone's arguing.
Yeah. It's funny how many like conversations or slacks I get from all the other episode directors that start with, "Hey, I have an idea. What do you think?" And then that was one of them was like, "Hey, I kind of really want him to wear that hat." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Would that be too much? And then it was just like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Tyrian is definitely one of the most fun characters to write for.
In terms of divvying up kind of like the way we handled the writing of this, we each kind of handled different storylines and then would swap and give notes and punch stuff up. I generally, for this episode, handled the Penny Winter scenes and the Aesop's RWBY stuff. And then Kiersi was running with the other half of it, and then we would swap and make adjustments to each other's work.
Which in general is pretty similar to the way y'all divvied it up, right, Dustin, Connor?
Yeah, that's pretty much what we did.
Yeah, I did all the Penny Winter stuff and the Aesops and the kids, and then Dustin,
Qrow and
the other stuff.
Yeah.
This was something we went back and forth on a lot, but I'm glad we did. It was basically changing the lighting in this whole area so that we could, have like a very tangible, real difference between the mood of the season, but also just help with keeping track of where everybody is too was a really important thing, because it's a very separated fight.
Yeah, and there was some debate about whether it would just be in Ironwood's office or if it would be like this whole floor. And we ended up doing the whole floor, and I'm glad we did. Because, it keeps it looking unified. This fight was really fun. It was like figuring out what the fundamental dynamics of each of these kind of pairings is, and like how best to accentuate it. Like theirs is basically a speed trial, so, they're just kind of like darting in and out of areas, and there's not as much actual fighting. Whereas with Elm and Yang and Blake and Vine, it's a lot more like kind of playing off each other's frustrations. Like they know Elm is hot-headed and they can kind of exploit that.
And I like how they're a little bit like mirrors of each other. Each of these teams have similar strengths and weaknesses, and one of those teams is dealing with them a little bit better.
One thing that kind of went into the planning of this whole fight too was definitely something that I learned from Volume 5 was, when we have these large fights, just having everybody in one giant room is just never gonna be good. You want to try and show the chaos, but you also need to make sure that we're not asking the animation team and all the teams really to do 3 fights simultaneously where the characters in the background fighting, mid-ground, foreground. we first see all of these sets in Chapter 2, but a lot of them were designed in a way so that we could make this fight all the way down here in Chapter 12 work as well. So we were able to think ahead on that a little bit and try and sort that out.
I do want to say before we move on from that scene that one of the things that excited me about this episode was I'm such a big Weiss stan, so being able to have Weiss do a little bit in the fight was very exciting.
Yeah, her stuff is some of my favorite from that fight too.
It's like we were talking about in the Chapter 10 commentary, that the knight made its first appearance there, so it could have a reprise in this episode with Marrow.
Right, and when it shows up there,
boy.
you see Marrow knows exactly how powerful it can be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Knows what the stakes are for him.
That's such a sad line from Qrow.
It really is. This
Brutal.
I every step of the process, I was pretty much tearing up throughout all of these scenes, like from the first time reading the scripts to then like seeing it on screen, even just in storyboard and animation form before it was all polished. It's just there are a lot of emotions going on.
Side note, I have to say, I really appreciated that this got through.
Oh yeah.
I really wanted it.
Every time we watched it, like in dailies or anything, there would be like an audible, like somebody would be like, "Oh," because it just has like the grossest sound, and then you see it like hanging whenever he pulls it up, and it's like bruised and stuff.
I don't think we ever got desensitized to it.
No. I was a jerk about it. Scott really hated listening to it, so I played it multiple times in a row for him.
This was a really pivotal moment, kind of when we were outlining and when we were writing, this moment of having this kind of three-way battle with kind of competing loyalties and different objectives. And,
well, you can see that Clover, he just really has no idea what he's up against with Tyrian. Like, he sees Qrow as the big threat, and that is clearly a mistake.
Well, and Tyrian is, Dustin, I know you and I worked in this a lot, is making sure it came through, like, Tyrian is manipulating, them as they go, and really, he's trying to give Qrow the option, like, hey, I can help you.
Yeah, and kind of the way we saw Clover through a lot of this was that he's going to ride that soldier line as much as he can, and as far as he's concerned, both of these guys are on the wrong side of the law.
Yeah, we talked about this in an earlier chapter, but I mean, Captain America is undoubtedly a big reference and an inspiration for him, and it reminds me a lot of several arcs that he's gone through where he had to fight somebody that he didn't want to, but he just didn't agree with, and so he kind of felt like he had to.
I'm such a big fan of the choreography in this sequence right here. I love this moment of Blake and Yang working together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're trying to find opportunities to, again, we were talking about spreading out the space earlier, and this was another one. Getting Vine up into that kind of upper eaves in that chamber was just like a great way to play with like rock throwing, and obviously giving him a great distance to fall in a second.
The fact that he has 30-foot arms.
I love that shot so much.
Yeah, this shot is like one of my favorites in the whole volume.
What, right? This one?
Yes,
yeah,
right there.
Yeah,
amazing use of slow-mo.
Joe Vick animated
nice.
that.
This is just another reminder of something that I've loved about RWBY fights since the very beginning. I think probably one of the best examples is the Nevermore fight Monty did in Volume 1, is just how much we all try and use the environments as well.
And in this section, it was kind of like, modifying the environment and then using it to advance the fight, right? Like, he creates these spikes, and then that creates an opportunity for him to kind of dance his way up them, and then have to dodge off of it. So, I don't know.
I like that it shows a little bit of... It does bring in that experience that he has as being a huntsman for longer.
Mm-hmm.
He's willing to do a little bit more, and then Yang kind of takes that to the next level.
The music in this scene is so good. It was just perfect.
Yeah. Jeff had this crazy idea. He's like, what if we had 4 vocalists? And I was like,
hell yeah.
Awesome. It's actually one of them is I'm sorry that I don't remember all the names, but one of them is Dawn Bennett, who voices Elm.
Yeah.
But all of them did an amazing job, and it really it brought this song to a whole nother level.
I love this whole last segment where she's fighting with her hands cuffed.
Yes. It really showcases her incredible skill.
Yeah, and just showing her emotions getting the better of her too at the end there. Like, we get a little bit of teamwork with Weiss and RWBY. You know, she's so blindly focused on RWBY that she can't even clock Weiss has entered the room.
I also want to say just credit for everyone putting that together, that because there's a lot of tough things to walk in that sequence of, to make it believable that Team RWBY could like pull this out because of the ASOTs being divided, but then also to not make it look like they just totally rolled over them, and I feel like it walks those lines pretty well.
Yeah, I think that was something that was really important, even from the outlining phase, is like, they can't just stomp on them. And I think that's where that first initial idea came in, is like, well, let's use the same restraints that they used against them.
Right, and they just and showcase their teamwork. These four have worked together for so long and have an emotional connection with each other that allows them to anticipate each other's moves in a really powerful way.
Well, then Clover's semblance is basically a cheat code. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like having him there and then not having him there makes a really huge difference for them too.
Oh, dirty Oscar.
I love all of these Penny Winter scenes. Like, they're two sides of the same coin here, and each of them is struggling with this decision in a different way.
Yeah, it was fun to kind of pay back some of the stuff we did in chapter 5 too, and show the paintings and kind of see her like meditating on like the human cost of this decision. You know, she's looking at like all the kind of evidence of this life that was lived in this chamber.
I feel like when editing this episode, you know, it was another one where, you know, it was a little bit on the longer side and we had to trim it down a little bit. It's such a hard decision in general of, you know, that moment was definitely longer than, you know, it could have been. It could have been shortened or it could have been truncated, but that would have taken away a lot. So it's always tough when you know you need to make an episode shorter, but you need to leave in these longer moments, because if not, they're not going to hit the right way.
This moment of Cinder coming down the hallway is one of the very earliest like conceptions of this scene. When we were first talking about different ways that we could shake things out and like have interesting matchups, we talked about a three-way fight between these three characters, and like one of the very first images we had talked about was Cinder like laying waste to like this kind of medical wing. So it's cool to see it. Very rarely do like initial ideas like that make it all the way to the end, you know?
Right. Or they've usually mutated a ton,
Yes.
but this one, it was pretty much spot on of like, we want this matchup.
I think this one too, though. This was actually a pretty early concept that I know that from the outset, Kerry, you and Miles really wanted to have a Qrow versus Tyrian reprise.
Yeah,
but not in the way we've seen it before. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and this is before we had written a lot of the other part of the series or season, but you know, the fact that there is this history with Tyrian and Qrow as well. That was going to play into it. It was, you know, we want to do a part 2 that wasn't just a part 2.
Right. And coming back to your comment earlier, Eddie, about Clover's semblance being a cheat code, you can really see here that he's just come to rely on it completely when he gets blindsided like that.
Why couldn't you just do the right thing instead of the thing you were told?
Oh, Qrow.
I'm already like...
Yeah, they all did such an amazing job. I like 100% when Jason Liebrick was voicing these last moments here with Qrow.
His shot was amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't get to sit in the booth for too many audio things, but I was there for this one.
That's right. Yeah,
Jason doing those lines. Yeah,
it was emotional all the way around.
His performances this season were incredible.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this was tough across the board. I think it was, you know, this moment was something that we wanted to do for the story, we wanted to do for Qrow, but I also think, you know, and this goes back all the way to some Volume 3 things, you know, with Pyrrha, it's like, it's what we want to do for the story, but it was really tough.
Yeah, you get there and it's like, are we actually doing this?
Yeah. Because I love Clover.
Well, that's what makes him such a great character, is he is so lovable, and I think it was such a weird experience for Qrow to meet someone who actually is genuinely like a good person.
And it makes it harder when he makes the wrong decision.
Yeah.
I think.
And the way Dustin you shot this and the lighting team, like everything about this moment, it was really tough, but I also think that it makes it hit, just right, and it increases
so glad we did it at
regret here for
sunrise.
Qrow too.
Yeah.
I gotta give Connor props for he actually had helped me rework this moment like early on because we had tried it a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, it turned out really well.